My ribs are already broken human, she whispered until he uncovered her body. Cold light bled across the shattered horizon of Zarian 4, the dying world that had once been her home. Where towers of crystalline spires had stretched toward 3 suns, only jagged husks remained now, blackened, hollowed, whispering in the wind like bones in an open grave. Seraphine Vera lay among them, hidden in the charred shadow of a collapsed solar array, her breath hitching against cracked ribs and half-healed burns. Her translucent wings, once luminous arcs of living energy, hung in ragged tatters at her back. Every tremor of pain sent dim ripples through them, as though the light inside her was too tired to shine anymore. She pressed her palm to the scorched earth, feeling the pulse of the world beneath her skin. It was faint now, fading like everything else. She whispered to herself in her native tongue, a sharp, trilling sound. Kestvaren, I am still alive. Some part of her wished she weren't. High above, the smoldering sky howled as another patrol drone screamed past, its sensor lights slicing across the ruins. Seraphine froze, wings trembling in the ash. If it found her, it would summon Rhaegar, and Rhaegar would not forgive her for running again. She closed her eyes and saw him as he had been, not the tyrant he had become, but the boy who had once carried her on his shoulders through the starlight gardens of the Capitol domes, laughing. Before the collapse, before he had let grief hollow him and fill the void with rage. Run, little sister, he had told her then. Now he hunted her for doing exactly that. A low hum rose through the broken spires. Seraphine's eyes flared open. The patrol drone had doubled back. Damn. She slithered from her hiding place, clutching the curved shard of hull plating she'd been using as a crutch. Every step stabbed pain through her ribcage, but she moved. She had to move. Beyond the ruins, across a stretch of glassed plain, her stolen skimmer waited half-buried under a camo cloak of fused sand. Its power cells were almost drained. She didn't care. It only had to carry her far enough. The drone's searchlight swept nearer, carving harsh white arcs across the dark. Seraphine ran. Ash hissed under her feet. Pain clawed up her spine. But she didn't stop. She lunged across the plain, cloak of sand trailing behind her like smoke. A shriek cut the air. The drone had seen her. Bolts of plasma slammed the ground around her. Molten sparks spraying her legs. The skimmer's hull loomed ahead. She dove for it, slamming her shoulder against the hatch, tumbling inside. Her hands danced across the cracked console. The engine coughed. Power levels flickered in angry red. Come on, just once more. The drone swooped, claws unfolding. The skimmer roared to life. With a snarl of ion flame, the craft launched skyward, tearing up from the dead plane. The drone gave chase, streaking after her into the stratosphere as lightning clawed across the swirling ash clouds. Seraphine clung to the controls, breath ragged, vision dimming at the edges. Her wings pulsed faintly behind her, spasming from the acceleration. Below, Zarian 4 dwindled, a cracked shell of a world receding into black. Ahead, only the void, hours blurred. Her skimmer wove through the tumbling chaos of the Oran Belt, a vast river of shattered moons. Glimmering shards spun past her canopy, catching the light of distant stars. The drone still hunted her, a dark spark ghosting her tail. Warning glyphs flared red across her console. Fuel, 4%. Structural integrity, failing. Her pulse hammered like a drum. She knew Rhaegar wouldn't stop, not until she was back in his grasp, or dust scattered among the stones. He had become singular, relentless, carved down to pure control. She would rather die free. The drone closed. Seraphine yanked the skimmer into a spiral between 2 tumbling asteroids, scraping hull plating from the wings. The drone mirrored her like a shadow, weaving closer, spewing fire. Something inside her snapped. Not bone, not wing, something deeper. She stopped running. With a wordless cry, she cut all power, letting the skimmer drift dead among the rocks. The drone surged past in surprise. In that heartbeat, she slammed full thrust into reverse, colliding with it head-on. Light erupted. Shards of drone and skimmer spiraled through the void. Her craft tumbled end over end, alarms howling, cockpit spinning. Stars wheeled. Gravity failed. Impact. Darkness swallowed her. Cold woke her. She lay half-crumpled on jagged stone, her suit torn, blood shimmering like quicksilver in the thin air. Shattered fragments of her skimmer lay scattered across the crater. Above her, the asteroid sky stretched wide and empty. No pursuit lights, no regger, no sound at all except the slow hiss of her own leaking breath. Her vision swam. She turned her head. Pain flared like nova fire. One wing twitched, dim and broken. The other did not move at all. She stared at the endless stars beyond the asteroid's rim. Maybe this was how it ended. Not in chains, not screaming. Just free. Her eyes fluttered closed. Somewhere, very far away, a long, slow pulse of light crossed the stars. A human patrol beacon. She did not see it. She did not hear the faint hum of engines descending. As silence took her, the last thing Seraphine Vera felt was a strange, impossible thing. Hope. A faint beeping threaded through the cockpit of the Endurance, breaking the slow rhythm of deep space patrol. Cale Draven leaned forward in his chair, frowning as the HUD painted a solitary distress pulse across the Oran Belt, a place where only ghosts and debris usually drifted. The beacon flickered weakly, as though even it was struggling to survive. Out here, he muttered, running a hand across the dark stubble on his jaw. No one should be out here. He keyed the scanners. No registry signature, no transponder, just wreckage and silence. Cale hesitated. The last time he'd chased a ghost signal into the belt, he'd come back with nothing but scars on his ship's hull and a cratered shoulder. But this one felt different, quieter, desperate. He throttled up. The Endurance cut through the asteroid field like a blade of white fire, its ion engines humming in steady counterpoint to the chaotic swirl of drifting stone. Cale's eyes narrowed as his searchlight swept across the broken carcass of a small skimmer half buried in the jagged dust of a crater. Its hull was ripped open like a wound. No heat signatures, no motion. Then, a flicker. Barely there, like the ghost of a heartbeat. Cale killed the engines and let momentum carry him in. The patrolman's voice in his head whispered all the reasons not to do this. Could be a trap. Could be pirates. Could be already dead. He ignored it. He always had. He sealed his helmet, grabbed a med pack, and stepped into the void. The asteroid's surface crunched under his boots. His suit lamps swept over shredded plating and molten scars. And there, half hidden in the shadow of a splintered wing strut, lay a body. At first, he thought it was a corpse. Too still, too pale. Then it moved. Barely. Cale froze. Not human. She was luminous. Translucent skin shimmered faintly with an inner glow, fractured along her ribs where pale blood leaked in slow silver trails. Wings of torn light curled around her, like broken glass, dim and flickering. Even through her agony, she looked like a creature sculpted from starlight and sorrow. Stars above, Cale whispered. He crouched slowly, palms open. Hey, you still with me? Her eyes snapped open, sharp, slitted pupils, flashing like molten opal. She hissed, jerking back weakly. The sound was pure animal fear. Easy, Cale said, voice steady, slow. Not here to hurt you. Her mouth opened. A whisper escaped, more exhale than voice. Stay. Away. Cale stayed where he was, kneeling in the dust, hands still empty. Every instinct screamed to move fast to stabilize her, but something in her gaze, feral, cornered, warned him. Too close and she'd break. Too far and she might think he would leave her. So he did the only thing that felt right. He stayed perfectly still. Minutes stretched. The silence of space pressed around them, broken only by her ragged breathing. Then her gaze flickered. Not trust, not yet, but exhaustion. Kale slowly reached into the med pack, keeping his movements wide and obvious. He held up a thermal patch. "This seals fractures," he said softly. "Buys you time." Her lips trembled. No answer. So he waited. He'd learned long ago that some wounds couldn't be rushed, that people crawled out of darkness on their own terms, not yours. Finally, her hand twitched toward him, a gesture so small it barely existed. Kale moved. The patch hissed as it sealed across her cracked ribs, glowing faint amber. She flinched, a pained hiss escaping her teeth, but didn't pull away. "Name's Kale Draven," he said quietly while he worked. "Ranger Corps, Sector 12. Her eyes blinked at him, unfocused. "You don't have to tell me yours," he added quickly, "unless you want to." Silence, then barely audible. Seraphine." He nodded once. "Seraphine," he echoed, like testing the shape of it. "Strong name." A faint, bitter sound ghosted from her. Almost a laugh, almost a sob. "My wings. Broken." "I can see that," he said gently, "but broken things can mend." Her breath hitched. No one had said that to her before. Not and meant it. Kale slid an arm under her shoulders. She tensed hard, every muscle ready to bolt. But her strength failed her before resistance could spark. "I'm going to lift you," he murmured. "Slow." He rose, careful as if cradling glass. She weighed almost nothing, her body feather light, as though the gravity barely believed in her. Pain flared through her with a choked cry. Kale steadied her against his chest. "I know," he said, steady as stone. "You're safe now." His words meant nothing to her ears, not yet, but the tone anchored her. He carried her across the dust toward the Endurance, gleaming in the darkness like a solitary star. The ship's ramp hissed down. Warm air spilled out, rich with the scent of metal and ozone. Seraphine's head lolled weakly, eyes half shut. Kale felt her shiver, not from cold, from fear. "Almost there," he whispered. Inside, the Endurance was small but solid, walls lined with worn tools, neatly stowed gear. A single faded photo of Kale's squad taped above the console. Not a prison, not a trap, just lived in. He laid her gently on the medbay cot. Her wings splayed limply across the sheets, dim sparks flickering and dying at their edges. Kale set to work, hours blurred. The ship's automedic hummed softly, stitching tissue with light. Kale stayed beside her, adjusting vitals, coaxing her to drink sips of water. She barely managed them, but color crept faintly back to her lips. Once her eyes opened and fixed on him, confused, wary. "Why? Help me." Kale paused, his hands stilled over the scanner. "Because you're alive," he said simply, "and alive deserves a chance." Her brow furrowed. "Humans do not risk for strangers." "Most don't," Kale admitted, "but I'm not most." Something in his voice, flat, firm, unshakable, made her chest ache. Not from pain, from something stranger. She drifted into uneasy sleep. Kale stayed awake. He sat by the bulkhead, whittling a sliver of scrap metal into the rough shape of a bird. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because her broken wings haunted him. Outside the viewport, the stars wheeled on, cold and infinite. He thought of the oath he'd sworn as a ranger. Stand when no one else will. Protect what can't protect itself. Most days it had felt like empty words. But tonight, looking at her fragile frame, rising and falling on the cot, it felt like purpose again. Seraphine woke screaming. The sounds sliced through the cabin. Pure terror. She bolted upright, eyes wild, wings flaring weak light. Kale was already there, hands open. "Hey, you're on a ship. You're safe." Her gaze darted around, panicked. "No, he'll come. He always comes." "Who?" She froze. Silence coiled like a spring. "My brother," she whispered at last, voice breaking on the word. Kale's jaw tightened. He said nothing. Not yet. Later, when she calmed, he brought food, a simple ration bar, warmed. He eyed it like it might explode. Eat, he said gently. Strength comes before fear. After a long pause, she bit. Just once. Her eyes widened slightly, not at the taste but at the absence of demand. Food had always come with commands, with threats. This came with nothing. For the first time in her memory, food tasted like care. Hours passed. Kale plotted a slow course out of the belt, careful to mask their trail. If someone had chased her this far, they'd come again. He checked the scanner one last time, then dimmed the lights. In the med bay, Seraphine lay staring at the ceiling. Her voice came so soft he almost missed it. Will he find me? Kale leaned in the doorway, arms folded. If he does, he said, quiet as iron, he won't touch you again. No boast, no fire, just a promise carved in stone. Her chest tightened. No one had ever promised her that before. For the first time since Zarian 4 burned, Seraphine let her eyes close without fear clawing them open again. And as the Endurance slid silent through the dark, Kale Draven kept watch, unblinking. A lone human, standing still against the endless night. The Endurance drifted beyond the last tumbling rocks of the Oran Belt, engines humming soft as a heartbeat. For the first time since her world had burned, Seraphine Vera saw open space without the taste of ash in her mouth. She sat curled in the med bay's corner seat, knees drawn to her chest, faint strands of light flickering along the ragged edges of her wings. The glow was steadier now, weak but no longer dying. Kale Draven stood at the forward console, shoulders squared, voice low as he muttered coordinates into the nav computer. He didn't glance at her often, but somehow he always seemed to know when her gaze lingered on him. Humans were strange, loud even when they were quiet, soft even when they were steel. Kale had not demanded her story. He had not shackled her, or cornered her, or pried her open like a cracked hull. He had simply given her food, warmth, and silence that did not cut. She did not know what to do with that. A soft chime pinged. Kale's eyes narrowed. Company! Her head snapped up. Not Reger, Kale added quickly, scanning the console. Different signatures. 6 small craft, vectoring fast from port quadrant. Pirates, most likely. The word meant little to her, but his tone did not. Calm, focused. He keyed the comm. Unidentified vessels. This is Ranger Kale Draven, course Sector 12. You are entering protected space. Alter course or be considered hostile. Only static answered. Then, laughter crackled over the channel. Low, mocking. Ranger, a gravel voice drawled. That's cute. Drop your weapons in your cargo, and maybe we won't carve the skin off your hull. Kale exhaled through his nose. Pirates, he confirmed. Seraphine's pulse spiked. Can we flee? Could, Kale said, but then they'd hunt us. Predators love running prey. He flicked a switch. The cabin lights dimmed crimson. I prefer to stand. Seraphine clutched the armrest as the Endurance surged forward. Kale's hands danced across the controls, all fluid precision, like a man born in vacuum. The ship rolled hard as the first salvo streaked past, ion trails painting electric blue across the dark. Her heart thudded. This was madness. Humans were mad. But something inside her, something long buried, flared at the sight of him, steady at the helm, eyes cold, voice calm. Not cruel calm like Regar, steady calm, like bedrock. Starboard cannon online, Kale muttered. Hold together, girl. The Endurance spun between 2 incoming raiders. Kale thumbed the trigger. White lances of plasma ripped from the cannon, shredding the lead craft in a blossom of fire. Shards spun away like dying meteors. Seraphine gasped. Kale didn't look back. That's 1. The remaining 5 closed in, weaving like wolves. Kale's jaw tightened. They want to pin us, break formation, then they can't flank. He yanked the yoke. The Endurance dove, skimming the fractured surface of a tumbling asteroid. Bolts of green plasma scorched past meters overhead. Seraphine's wings flared involuntarily, shards of light sparking off them like starlight in panic. "Stay low," Kale called. "If they clip a wing—" "I do not have working wings," she blurted, then flushed. He flashed the briefest grin. "Then you can't crash them." "Handy." Another raider darted ahead to cut them off. Kale spun the ship into a rolling corkscrew and fired. The shot ripped through the pirate's starboard engine. The craft spiraled off, venting fire, then burst in silence. "Two," Kale murmured. But now the raiders were angry. The remaining four tightened formation, coming in a diamond, weapons blazing. The Endurance shuddered under the barrage. Alarms screamed, panels flickered. "Shields at 30, Kale said. Still calm, still steady. Time to gamble." Seraphine's chest tightened. "Gamble?" He didn't answer. Instead, he killed the engines. The Endurance went dead, drifting. The pirates overshot in surprise. In that heartbeat, Kale kicked full power to the aft thrusters, flipping the ship end over end. The stars wheeled. Then he fired both cannons at point-blank range. Twin pirate ships detonated in sheets of white fire. 3 and 4, Kale said, voice like carved iron. The last two scattered, then turned tail and burned hard into the dark. Kale didn't chase. He sat back, fingers loose on the controls, breath finally leaving his lungs. Seraphine realized her own hands were trembling. Not from fear, from something wilder. Awe. Humans were small, fragile, soft. She could crush Kale's bones in her clawed hands if she wanted. But in that battle, he had moved like a storm, like defiance given flesh. HFY. The thought stirred from some old archive of human war legends she had once studied. Humans fight monsters, not because they are stronger, but because they refuse to kneel. She had never believed it. Until now. Later, the Endurance drifted in quiet. Stars shimmered through the viewport, unbothered by the wreckage still cooling in their wake. Kale was on the floor panel, tools scattered, patching the scorched conduit with stripped wire and stubborn muttering. His forearms were streaked with grease, his hair damp with sweat. Seraphine hovered at the doorway, silent. "You saved us," she said at last. Kale glanced up. "We're not dead, yeah, but saved?" He shrugged. "Still have work to do. Humans. Fight when outnumbered? When necessary. Why?" He looked at her, really looked, eyes dark and steady. "Because someone has to." Something in her chest shifted. Something that had curled in terror for years lifted its head. That night, if there was night in deep space, she could not sleep. Her mind replayed the battle, fire, chaos, death spinning in silence. Yet through it, Kale's calm voice like a tether. He rose from the med cot and padded softly to the forward deck. Kale sat in the pilot's chair, boots up, staring at the stars. A small carved bird sat on the console, metal wings half spread. He didn't turn when she entered. "Can't sleep?" "No," she admitted. Silence stretched. It was not uncomfortable. "My people," she said quietly, "believed humans were reckless animals." Kale snorted. "Fair. But also," she hesitated, "beautiful, because they fight even when there is no hope." Kale's smile was faint, tired. "Hope's overrated. Stubbornness gets you further." She found herself smiling back. For a long time, they just watched the stars. Seraphine's wing lights shimmered faintly, casting ghost light across Kale's worn features. He looked carved from the same stone as his oath, weathered, unyielding. And for the first time in her life, she felt the edges of safety. Not cages, not chains, safety. 2 days later, the Endurance coasted into the shadow of a rogue gas giant. Its rings arced like frozen fire, glowing blue in the dark. Kale shut down the main drive to mask their trail. Seraphine stood at the viewport, breath fogging the glass. The sight stole words from her throat. Kale joined her, arms folded. Never seen one this close. My world had skies, she whispered, but not this. Kale's gaze flicked to her wings, still ragged but glowing steadier. You'll fly again. Her throat tightened. You believe that? I have to, he said simply. Else what's the point? She turned to him. His face was half in shadow, half in the cold light of the rings. Steady, always steady. Something dangerous and delicate coiled in her chest. Trust. She didn't notice her hand drifting closer to his on the railing until their fingers brushed. Kale stilled, glanced at her. She expected him to pull away. Everyone always had. He didn't. He just let their hands rest together in silence, neither pushing, neither claiming. Just sharing the same small warmth in the cold. Seraphine closed her eyes, letting the quiet soak into her bones. Her ribs still ached, her wings still burned with phantom pain. But for the first time since the ruins of Zarian 4, she felt like she was more than her wounds. And somewhere far behind them, beyond the belt, beyond the silent wreckage, Rhaegar Vera stirred. He stood on the deck of a dread cruiser, black as a dead star, watching ghost feeds of pirate distress calls flicker and die. His eyes, once like molten gold, now burned dull iron. He knew that signature, that light. Seraphine lived. A slow, cold smile crept across his face. He turned to his helmsman. Oh, track the human, Rhaegar said. Bring me my sister. Rhaegar Vera watched the stars drift past the viewport like cold sparks from a dying forge. He stood at the prow of his dread cruiser, oblivion hands clasped behind his back, silent as the vacuum. The bridge crew did not speak unless spoken to. They had learned long ago that Rhaegar's quiet was deadlier than rage. On the tactical display before him, ghost signals from the Oran Belt pulsed faintly, the aftermath of the pirate ambush. 6 ships, only 2 escaped, both fleeing at full burn, their comms crackling with panic about a human ranger who fought like a storm. And amid the static, Rhaegar had glimpsed it, a shimmer of light, fractured wings curling around a faint silhouette. His sister, alive. The word echoed through him like a blade drawn across stone. She thinks she can run, he murmured. She thinks she can be free. His voice was almost gentle. Almost. Find them, he told his helmsman. Shadow their trail. No strikes until I give the word. Yes, Overlord, the helmsman whispered. Rhaegar's eyes stayed on the stars. Bring her home, or burn everything she touches. Far ahead, unaware of the darkness following them, the Endurance coasted into the orbit of a nameless, rogue station, adrift between the star lanes. It was a skeleton of old wars, rusted plating, patchwork docking arms, neon signs flickering in alien glyphs. A place where questions weren't asked and answers were for sale. Kale set the ship down on a cracked mag slat and powered down the core. Seraphine stood at the viewport, her wings dimly glowing. This place feels broken. Fits us then, Kale said lightly, shouldering his rifle. Her brow furrowed. Is it safe? Nothing's safe, Kale replied. But it's quiet. That's close enough. Inside, the air smelled of ozone and stale spice. Figures of a dozen species drifted through the shadowed corridors. Smugglers, scrap dealers, exiles. None looked twice at them. Kale led Seraphine to a small hab pod at the far end of a forgotten docking ring. Its door stuttered before creaking open to reveal a narrow bunk, a cracked wash station, and a single window looking out on the black. Seraphine stepped inside hesitantly. The metal floor hummed under her feet. Kale checked the locks, then glanced back at her. You should rest. She sank onto the bunk, wings folding tight around her. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she whispered, He will come. Kale leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Your brother. Yes. Her voice cracked. He doesn't stop. Kale said nothing. The quiet stretched, heavy but not sharp. Seraphine stared at her hands. When our world fell, he tried to protect me, at first, but when everything burned, something broke in him. He decided if he could not save what we were, he would control what remained. Her voice thinned to a thread. Me. Kale moved closer, slow, until he crouched in front of her. Seraphine, he said gently, what he did to you, that wasn't protection. That was cruelty. She flinched as if struck. No one had ever said it plain. No one had dared name it. Tears burned her eyes. I thought, maybe it was love twisted. Love doesn't cage, Kale said. His voice was quiet, iron under velvet. It stands beside. Her chest ached, but differently now, like something tight was cracking. You don't have to carry his darkness, Kale added. It's not yours. Seraphine's throat locked. She had run from Rhaegar's chains, but part of them had stayed wrapped around her heart. Until now. They stayed on the station for 2 cycles. Kale bought repair parts, patched the Endurance, restocked rations. Seraphine ventured out only once, cloaked, to stand on the station's outer gantry and look at the stars. The void no longer felt like a cage. It felt like possibility. That night, back in the pod, she found Kale on the floor surrounded by scattered star charts. He looked up, half smiling. Mapping us away clear of pursuit, he said. You think he follows? I'd bet my other arm on it. She hesitated. You could. Leave me. Be safer. Kale blinked, then actually laughed. Not my style. Her pulse stumbled. Why? Because I said I'd get you safe, Kale replied simply. And humans, we don't quit halfway. HFY, that stubborn, impossible human streak. She stared at him for a long time, then said softly, You are not what I thought humans were. Kale grinned faintly. Good. I like surprising people. The next morning, the Endurance's hull alarm shrieked. Kale was on his feet before Seraphine even sat up. He slapped the console. Sensor pings flared red across the screen. Dozens of contacts burning in fast from the outer ring. Rhaegar's fleet. Kale's jaw hardened. He found us. Outside the viewport, the black blossomed with fire as dreadships dropped from warp, their silhouette like knives against the stars. Seraphine's wings flared instinctively. Terror clawed up her spine. Kale grabbed his rifle and slammed the pod's emergency release. Move! They sprinted through the crumbling corridors as shockwaves rocked the station. Bulkheads split. Fire licked down the walls. Screams echoed. The docking bay loomed ahead. The Endurance crouched on its mag slat like a waiting hawk. A blast sheared the deck beside them. Seraphine stumbled. Kale caught her arm, hauling her upright. Don't stop now, he barked. Run! They hit the ramp as another volley ripped the bay apart. Kale threw himself into the pilot's seat, hands flying across the controls. The Endurance roared to life. The station tore open behind them as they shot into the void, weaving through collapsing girders and burning debris. Shields at 50, Kale muttered. Hold together, girl. Seraphine strapped into the co-pilot seat, wings trembling, eyes wide. Then the dreadship surged after them. Space turned to fire. Bolts of crimson plasma lanced past as Kale juked and rolled. The Endurance screamed in protest. One blast clipped the aft plating. Alarms howled. Lights strobed. Kale! Hang on! He yanked them through the rings of the gas giant, using the thick electromagnetic fields to scatter the enemy's targeting locks. But the dreadships kept coming, fast, precise, relentless. Rhaegar's voice cracked across the comm, cold and smooth. Little sister, running only sharpens the blade. Seraphine went rigid. The sound froze her blood. Kale glanced at her, voice flint hard. He doesn't get to define you. A plasma bolt slammed the port wing. The cabin jolted sideways. Seraphine's harness snapped. She slammed into the console with a cry. Kale cursed, hauling the ship level. You hurt? She hissed through her teeth. Just ribs. Good, because I need you. Her eyes widened. Me? You still have your wing lights, Kale said quickly, thinking fast. Can you pulse them bright, like a flare? I Think. Do it. Blind their sensors on my mark. She swallowed fear, nodded. Kale yanked the Endurance into a tight spiral around the gas giant's pole, pulling G-forces that blurred his vision. The dredge ships followed, banking in close formation. Now, he shouted. Seraphine flung her wings wide. Light exploded from her in a searing shockwave, pure starfire tearing through the dark. Sensors shrieked. The pursuing dredge ships faltered, scattering. Kale dove between them, firing both cannons point blank. 2 dredge ships erupted in molten light. Beautiful, he muttered, but the reprieve was brief. Rhaegar's flagship surged from the dark, vast, armored, inexorable. Its shadow swallowed them. Kale, Seraphine whispered. Yeah, he said grimly. Time to go. He punched the warp drive. The Endurance howled, space folding into blinding white. The dredge ships vanished behind them. Silence crashed back like a wave. Kale slumped in the seat, chest heaving. We're clear, for now. Seraphine stared at him, breath shaking. You risked everything. He met her gaze. So did you. Her wing lights flickered softly, not with fear this time, but something warmer. Something dangerous. Hope. They limped into the shadow of a dead moon hours later, hull scorched, systems bleeding power. Kale set the ship down in a crater and killed the drive. In the quiet that followed, Seraphine turned to him. When he comes again, she said softly, he will not stop. No, Kale agreed, but neither will I. She stared at him. Why? Why fight something so much stronger? Kale leaned back, eyes on the stars. Because humans don't measure fights by odds, he said. We measure by what's worth protecting. Her breath caught. No one had ever fought for her. Not until him. For a long time, they just sat in the dim glow of the cracked console, silent, hearts still racing. Seraphine's wing lights shimmered faintly, painting pale fire across Kale's scarred face. He caught her looking. Didn't look away. Slowly, almost without thinking, her hand found his. Kale's fingers closed around hers, warm, solid, steady. And for the first time in her life, Seraphine Vera did not feel like prey. She felt like someone worth standing for. Far behind them, aboard the Oblivion Rhaegar, stood in his war chamber, eyes like cold iron. Track them, he said. Herd them. His voice was a whisper of knives. They will run to the edge of the stars, and there I will end them both. The dead moon hung in the black like a cracked skull, its surface split by ancient bombardments and bleeding pale dust into the void. Kale Draven stood on its barren ridge, rifle slung over one shoulder, visor down against the stinging grit. Behind him, the Endurance crouched like a battered hawk, hull scorched, systems barely humming. Beside him stood Seraphine Vera, her torn wings dim but steady, faint starfire leaking from the fractures. She stared across the cratered plain, silent. The cold wind cut through her as if she were made of glass. He's coming, she said. Kale didn't ask how she knew. Her tone was enough. Then we stand, he replied simply. She turned her eyes on him. You could leave. You could live. Maybe, Kale said. His voice was calm, stone under storm. But then you wouldn't. Seraphine's throat tightened. Words tangled behind her teeth. None would do. Above them, the stars flared white, and the darkness moved. The Oblivion tore from warp with the soundless fury of collapsing suns, its black hull blotting half the sky. Dredge ships poured from its flanks like locusts, engines shrieking. Rhaegar stood on its forward deck, eyes burning dull iron. Through the viewport he saw the ridge, the human, the flicker of broken wings. His lips curved, slow. At last, he lifted his hand. Burn them. The sky fell. Plasma fire hammered the ridge, tearing stone into molten spray. Kale dove behind a jagged outcrop, returning fire in short, precise bursts. Each shot flared like white knives across the void, striking down the first wave of drones. "Stay low," he barked. Seraphine crouched, light crackling instinctively from her wings, deflecting a glancing blast. The force sent pain screaming through her ribs. But she held. Her heart pounded. This was it. No more running. "Kale," she gasped. "There are too many." "There's always too many," he growled. "That's never stopped humans." HFY. Unshakable. Impossible. Infuriating. He surged from cover, laying down a storm of fire. Dredge ship after dredge ship ignited, plunging to the moon's surface in silent eruptions. But for every one that fell, two more replaced it. The oblivion descended. Its shadow swallowed the ridge. Rhaegar strode down its ramp like a walking blade, armor black as obsidian, his aura a cold furnace. "Seraphine," he called, voice echoing across the crater. "Little sister." She froze. The sound sliced through her like a knife of memory. Old nights in the ruins, his arms around her, whispers of protection curdling into chains. "Come home," Rhaegar said. "Kneel and this ends." Kale stepped in front of her. "She's not yours," he said. Rhaegar's gaze slid to him, cold and amused. "Human. You are small." "Yeah," Kale said, lifting his rifle. "And still standing." Rhaegar's smile was like the crack of ice. Then break. He moved like a falling star. Kale barely rolled aside as Rhaegar slammed into the ridge, stone exploding under his boots. The shockwave hurled Kale across the crater. His rifle spun away. Seraphine's scream ripped the air. She flung herself between them, wings blazing instinctively. Rhaegar's backhand caught her mid-flight, hurling her into the cliffside. Pain detonated through her chest. Dust filled her lungs. "Always fragile," Rhaegar hissed. He stalked toward her, slow, inevitable. Seraphine's vision swam. Her body screamed to stay down. But behind Rhaegar, Kale rose from the dust. He hit Rhaegar like a thunderbolt, driving him off balance. They crashed across the crater, fists and steel colliding in arcs of light. Rhaegar swung like a war god, blows cracking stone, but Kale was faster, darting, striking, refusing to fall. Every impact rattled his bones. Blood slicked his visor. His ribs screamed. Still he fought. Not because he was stronger, because he refused not to. "HFY," Rhaegar snarled, slamming Kale to the ground, boot crushing his chest. "You bleed," he said. Kale grinned through blood. "So do gods." He jammed his shock blade upward into Rhaegar's thigh. The Overlord roared, stumbling. Kale rolled free, lungs burning. Seraphine dragged herself up the cliffside. Blood dripped silver from her palms. Her wings flickered, broken and dim. Kale couldn't win. Not alone. Not like this. And she could not let Rhaegar take him from her. Not after all Kale had given. Silence without fear, care without chains, belief without price. Something inside her broke. Not fear. The cage. She screamed, and her wings erupted. Light exploded from her, pure and blinding, searing the sky white. The cliff shuddered. Dust vaporized. Rhaegar froze, turning as the glare scorched his armor. Seraphine rose from the stone like a star reborn. Her wings were whole, not flesh, not bone, but radiant energy arcing in twin blazing spans. Their light carved away shadow. Rhaegar's eyes widened. "No!" "Yes," she said, voice like burning wind. She struck. They collided midair, light against darkness. Her wing blades cut through his black armor, each strike shattering the chains he had forged in her mind. Rhaegar roared, claws raking her side, but she did not falter. "You will always be mine," he bellowed. "I was never yours," Seraphine hissed, and drove her wings through his chest. And a light tore him apart from within. Rhaegar screamed, a sound like stars dying, then dissolved in a storm of ash and black fire. Silence crashed back. Seraphine hung in the air, wings blazing across the crater like twin suns. Then the light dimmed and she collapsed. Kale caught her before she hit the stone, arms steady. "You did it," he whispered. Her voice was faint, trembling. "We did." Kale smiled, raw and tired and real. "Yeah, we did." They watched in silence as the Oblivion's remaining dreadships scattered into warp, leaderless. The sky slowly cleared. The war was over. Or at least, their part of it was. Hours later, the Endurance lifted from the dead moon, engines limping but alive. Seraphine sat in the co-pilot's seat, wrapped in a thermal cloak. Her new wings glimmered faintly behind her, soft as moonlight. Kale guided the ship toward the distant shimmer of star lanes. "You can go anywhere now," he said. "Earth if you want. It's messy, loud, but it's home." Seraphine tilted her head. "With you?" He glanced at her, brow raised. "If you'll have me." She smiled, a small, fierce thing. "Then yes." As the Endurance streaked into the dark, Seraphine leaned back, letting the stars pour across her. Her ribs still ached. Her heart would heal slower. But she was free. Her wings were whole. And beside her sat a stubborn, impossible human who had stood against the dark simply because she was worth standing for. For the first time in her life, Seraphine Vera was not running from anything. She was flying towards something. The end.